Hey, what's going on, guys? Blade Hansha coming back with the start of a new video series for Granblue Versus. And for this series, we're going to talk about who to pick as your main character, with a lot of my personal bias involved, but you know how it is. I'm not really a tournament player or anything, just your typical non-competitive net play scrub. So hopefully the opinions of a filthy casual is something you're looking for. So let's begin with Gran, the protagonist, the captain of the blue skies, the big Chad himself, the singularity of fates. We've seen this man before in just about every anime and JRPG. He is the golden standard main character, and here in Granblue Versus, he's a basic ass fighting game character. If you want to compare Gran to a Street Fighter character, he'd be the Ken of the roster, an all-rounder with a bit more focus on rushdown. So if you want to use the universal fighting game standard, you can go for either Gran or Catalina, and personally, I think Gran is a lot more fun than Catalina in this game, and much more satisfying to play as well. So I felt that way since the beta actually. I said that Gran and Lancelot were much more fun to use than some of the other characters in the cast, although right now I put Charlotta in that same situation. I just didn't play her in the beta. But yeah, for this game, it feels like characters that are a bit more aggressive tend to be a bit more fun. And Gran is very fun to play. You can't go wrong with him. If you want to enjoy the game from a gameplay standpoint, you'll definitely enjoy your time with him. He's also a very strong and effective character. Like, ever since the beta, he was frequently brought up in the Discords and some posts on Twitter. That was like one of the reasons I even tried him out in the third beta session, was that people were saying how good he was. Him and Fairy were basically touted as being like the best characters. Charlotte, of course, started winning the pre-release events, but Gran is still going strong in his own right, and a lot of the people talking about how good he was were absolutely correct about him being really strong. Alright, so past the introduction, let's start talking about some pros and cons for picking Gran. Let's start with all the good things. For one, Gran moves very quickly. It's the main reason I like him. His movement speed is probably the most comfortable in the entire cast. So even with fighting the further range fighters like Matera and Fairy, you can easily get close to them and run your offense. Whenever I pick Gran and then move back to a slower character, I end up missing his movement speed especially. Playing a lightweight character just feels nice in this game because everyone else feels so heavy. And for some reason, like, the lightweight characters feel like the average movement speed for the other Arc System Works games. He's very comfortable when it comes to a movement standpoint. He's also very strong as a frame trap heavy rushdown character. Basically, your main way of hitting people will be when you're positive, when you have plus frames, after your close range attacks, your close proximity attacks, and your attacks come out fast enough to where you can win out most of the time against slower characters. If you enjoy this playstyle, you'll really like him since his strategy works even stronger in an online environment, and we know that most people do play online, so those few frames of delay are going to make your opponent really struggle to actually react or challenge your gaps. So in many cases, if they aren't mashing immediately, you can sometimes feel even more at an advantage than you normally would, making him a much stronger character. Couple that with his universal overhead being far more effective online as well, and you are looking at a very good character for online play. But most importantly, he's very fun and very satisfying. You feel good about every decision you make when using this character because almost every button is the correct choice. And it's difficult for you to be severely punished for any mistakes you're making. Sometimes you could even just do a DP after a mistake and all of a sudden, oh wow, the other person wasn't smart enough to make the right decision. You were the smart one the whole time. Moving on to his ridiculous special moves. If you want that classic fireball from old fighting games, Gran has that too. It comes with low recovery and everything, while also being good for keeping your pressure stable. The X version, in particular, is incredibly strong. You can just throw it out and run up for free pressure if it hits, and even zoners are not going to be able to challenge this. And it's still great in the corner as well, since you have an advantage on block, but also you get a big damage confirm on hit. So then we get his
Grand Boot.
The light version of this attack is combo filler, but you can catch people slipping thanks to the follow-up. But more importantly, the medium and the EX version of the
Grand Boot
are straight up unfair. Half the time, no one is going to block it online at all without being especially wary of it. I've had tons of situations where I just barely instant block the X version, and that's mostly because he's flashing bright yellow, which is a big warning sign to just start blocking. Not only that, but the
Grand Boot
doesn't believe in trading with your opponent. This thing is all hitbox. Most attacks in this game, even your sword attacks, do extend your hurt box forward, Usually the other characters will lose out when they try to challenge it, or if you use a move slightly before their attack. In a worst case scenario, you end up clashing, but when you clash, Gran is considered airborne, and most of his air attacks are ridiculously useful for this situation. Anyways, amazing move to throw out for far punishes as well, especially good at longer ranges because you can be at an advantage when spaced correctly. I had a lot of fun when I was using this move a lot, and you know, I still play Gran a lot actually, so yeah. Also, he has a DP, the classic protagonist Shoryuken with the sword. It's very quick and fast, sometimes difficult to punish depending on the situation as well, because the light version is so fast, it just doesn't have a lot of recovery either. You also get to pretend you're a Ken Masters with his EX version, which gives you Shoryu Reppa. Feels great to hit people with it, get that hard knockdown, and just start running it on them. Especially when you are slightly negative off your boot, and decide you want to win any possible engagement afterwards. Also, Gran's Shoryuken is a very clean anti-air. For when you're amazing anti-air in the first place, you already have a good anti-air, but you're crouching heavy, sometimes it's not going to be fast enough. And it's nice to have the option to use your reversal as an anti-air as well. Classic Street Fighter. Overall, Gran is an incredibly fun and basic character. Easy damage, easy ways to hit confirm his combos, and very safe. Honestly, if you just want to have an easy time online, you play this man and feel like you're the best. Even characters like Fairy are scared of him when he gets in. Like, he might actually have an even matchup with Fairy. I don't know about that, to be honest, but I do think he might have an even matchup with Fairy. That's crazy. Like, Fairy's broken. And Catalina is just a different variant of himself, so even that matchup isn't an issue. And Catalina's looking to be, well, she's steadily like rising up in people's opinions as of like the last week. People were saying that Catalina's actually pretty good. So, yeah, you won't really have too much trouble with a lot of the good characters in this game. And most importantly, Gran is such a Giga Chad that he brings out his girlfriend to watch him fight. So remember when you get your ass beat in a corner, that she's always watching. Oh, and his best friend is there too, talking shit. We know how Vern does, he's always talking shit. So yeah, just Gran is just showing off his power of friendship, and there really isn't anything you can do about it. So my personal opinion, I think Gran is fun, but there are a couple of reasons I wouldn't personally main him. For one, he looks like trash. I don't know who thought this looked good enough to be an iconic design. He has much cooler alternate job pads from the Bowser game. I'll always complain about this. I will always complain that you can't get any other outfits. But since they almost never get referenced in any official story content, I think it would be really cool to update his design for a more canon upgrade. Kind of like promotions in some other games that you may play, like strategy games. A visual change from a mediocre outfit can go a long way for making the character a bit more appealing, but unfortunately that's just not the case here. And also his personality is the anime personality for Gran, which is a bit more on the standard side of things. I personally liked his more goofy and charismatic depiction in the previous April Fool's event for Granblue Fantasy. I think it was like 2015 or yeah, I think it was 2015 April Fool's, where he and Jita were actually fully voiced for this idol scene. And Gran was pretending to be a producer, but yeah. But also, besides that, the dialogue options in Granblue's story also imply that this more goofy and charismatic side to Gran actually exists. You can choose between the more standard answers or that more goofy, sarcastic answers. So, you know, I definitely vibe with the more energetic Gran. You know, they went with the standard one. He's not as cool as I would like. A little too sugary sweet and respectful for my taste. Also, like I said before in another video, gacha games are all about your waifus and husbandos. Gran, especially base level 1 Gran, isn't exactly the cream of the crop from this list from OG Granblue. Hell, just in this game, Percival looks way better. If I want to play a male character, I would want to play Percival. Unfortunately, his playstyle isn't my thing, but you know, I do also prefer playing as waifu characters nowadays. You get that little benefit of a small dose of fan service, whether it's like a design, camera angles, or even just a cute face, on top of having typically faster gameplay than the male characters. If you want to have a constant fun time playing online, while also still having a very solid character that will continue to work as you get better at the game, then just play Gran. If you ever feel like there's a matchup giving you issue, it's only going to be one of the very few matchups that Gran has to change his game plan. So for the most part, all the fault lies in you. It's going to be all about you adapting to your opponent if you want that shonen protagonist privilege and you get that urge to play the main character in just about every game you play, just pick Gran. If you want to win, play Gran. Just don't go to other fighting games expecting to get away with random Tatsus, Hell's Fangs, Ban Revolver, whatever, Ice Car. Gran is basically the only character that gets rewarded so heavily for doing this. And also expect your DPs to actually get punished in other games. And also expect your Fireball to not be as good. Nowadays, Fireballs are pretty weak in fighting games, so for Shotos. So don't expect other fighting games to have really good Fireball characters that play similar to Gran. And also your movement speed would probably not be higher than most of the cast when you're playing other fighting games as a Shoto. So yeah, don't get used to that either. But other than that, go for it. You know, if you want to somehow be competitive, he's also a good pick to be consistent with. I personally noticed that this type of character either goes two ways. Either he stays strong, or most people would call him predictable and easy to deal with over time, which settles him to high tier. Or maybe even like a different situation too, like people complain a little bit too much about a character early on, and then they get nerfed in one of the early patches, but then other characters end up being stronger and you lose the point of actually playing the character. That could very much happen to Gran if the first update does give him nerfs and stuff. Like there's been a lot of complaints about him, so I hope this game gets updated with buffs instead of nerfs, but don't be surprised if he gets more startup and recovery on certain things and a nerf to his damage output. Anyways, that was about it for Gran. Next character I'll talk about is Catalina. Hope you guys have a good time and enjoyed the video. Later.